I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik. Today, I'm joined by three of my friends here. To my left, Preston Lentford from marketing. Across the table, Jayden Quinlan, our Senior Ballistician, and Miles Neville, Project Engineer here at Hornady. Guys, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Absolutely.
It's our pleasure.
To be here.
So what I want to get into today and really flush out, start, finish, where it's going, where it's been, top to bottom, A to Z, soup to nuts, 6mm Advanced Rifle Cartridge, or the 6-ARC as we all usually refer to it as, because it's quickly become one of my favorite cartridges. I know you share in that as well, but it's also becoming really popular on the market. You know, you can go to the store, you can buy a rifle. We're getting the factory ammo out there, and it's just a really well-rounded, balanced cartridge that has a lot of use in a lot of different fields. So to start it off, this started for us kind of before we started on the project, if that makes any sense. Preston, let's talk about what you were doing in, I don't know, when was that, 2015-16 time frame?
Yeah, I was somewhat early on up in I was in technical services, and in that game, in that arena, my mind has to play. If not, you know, the calls, the emails, they can wear on you. But
yeah,
we like to tinker with projects, and that was my fun way of getting a little stress relief, and also, you know, having something within the industry or within this market, whatever you have, Wildcat cartridge.
Yeah,
and I found a cartridge. It was a 6mm Wildcat based on the Grendel. I liked the Grendel. I'd owned one previously. I didn't necessarily like the fact that you were shooting a heavier bullet that you couldn't make go as fast with the BC that was equal to the BC of a 6mm heavy bullet that you could make go faster.
Right, that makes sense.
So to me, the 6mm made way more sense, and I got a barrel. I put it on an AR, and then I didn't have any low data.
Oh, so what year was this? When are we going back to?
Probably 2016, 2017 timeline.
And it's probably safe to say that since the 6.5 Grendel was released, there is always somebody that's going to neck things up and down. So the 6mm version of a Grendel case wasn't a secret, but what you ran into, you build this thing, you think it's going to be really cool, and it is, but you really don't know where to start and where to finish for low data.
Right. Yeah. So I called Jayden. I said, hey, can you type some things into your computer machine and spit me out some relatively, hopefully safe loads. So I was playing with 87 grain bullets, 105 grain bullets, 108 grain bullets, and he gave me some powders that I wanted to use that I had on hand. This was before, you know, when powder was somewhat readily available, so I could go get pretty much anything. But at the time I had an 8-pounder of Benchmark. I wanted to try that. Turns out probably not as good as I wanted it to be in that application, maybe a little bit too quick burning. But I played around with a lot of stuff, and I was always able to get, hindsight, what was acceptable groups. I wasn't happy with it at the time because I'd come from shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor bolt gun.
Yeah, so, everything's accurate in those things.
Yeah, you're shooting one whole groups. Now you're shooting, you know, 3/4 inch to a minute, and I don't know. I'm probably not the best AR shooter to begin with, but had pretty much everything I shot through it was acceptable. At the time, I had a Caldwell chronograph, shoot-through chronograph, I didn't, you know, and I had a cord and it came to my phone and everything, but I was able to get some decent speeds. Wasn't entirely sure on pressure at all.
And in a gas gun, that's a point of concern.
Absolutely, it is. Hindsight, I think that bolt actually set back on me a little bit. So, yeah, definitely played on the upper end of things, just trying to find the limits. Had our Ben in Custom Dies make me a custom set of dies.
Nice.
And if anybody's interested in that, one of the only guys in the industry to make custom dies right now is Hornady. So take a look at it. Ben is a good guy to talk to, and he can guide you down the right path. But
quick shout out to Ben. Yeah, Custom Dies, Hornady Manufacturing. Appreciate it.
Yep. And so he made me a custom set of dies. He actually measured some of my cases. Found out that perhaps my chamber was a bit oblong somehow. So he actually went and named my custom set of dies the 6mm oblong. But yeah, Jayden knew I was playing with it,
Mhm.
and I sent the barrel back after I wasn't exactly happy with the chamber being the way it was, and he said, "Hey, do you still have that die?" I said, "Yeah, you can have it." And radio silence.
Radio
for
silence.
me, that's my side of the story.
So to bring that into kind of a summary, you had some fun playing with a Wildcat, and like you mentioned, being in technical service, the monotony of answering emails and answering phone calls, that's a good vent, to build rifles and to practice with things and
you're learning simultaneously.
Yeah, play with Wildcats. But what you ran into was a situation where the idea was good, but there wasn't enough documented and standardized support to really make it a worthwhile venture.
Right. And any data that I had found previously online turns out was likely well over pressure.
Absolutely.
Which
So
is a problem.
that brings us to maybe 2017 time frame. And Jayden, I'm looking at you now pretty heavy because around that 2017 time frame, the United States had been at war for nearly 2 decades, and they'd learned a lot about some of the limitations of what they were fighting with. And where did the 6mm arc fall into this arena, and how did that really come to be back in, I'm assuming that started somewhere around that 2017 timeframe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had some active projects with some DoD entities at that time and prior to that. And what you had from maybe an environment standpoint, kind of setting the stage, was we'd been fighting this war for almost 20 years. The enemy isn't stupid, and a lot of those guys that you were fighting 10 years ago are either still around or they taught the guys that you're fighting now. Mm-hmm. And so from a TTP, tactics, technique, procedure standpoint, the reason why they do things is because they've learned lessons, no different than us.
Right.
And so 5.56 NATO was the primary cartridge that was used in those theaters, up and from the beginning all the way to that point in time. Obviously other stuff as well, but primarily 5.56 NATO. Well, with that cartridge, if you go hang out at 500 or 600 meters, somebody can hit you with the projectile, but it doesn't really do much. And even hitting somebody out there isn't cakewalk with that system. So
right.
So what you saw was the enemy was hanging out essentially outside of the effective range of the weapon systems that were primarily being used by our guys downrange. So you saw the shift over to 7.62 by 51, which is 308, right?
Natural progression. If you're going to hang out there, I'll find something that can hit you out there.
Yeah, I'll give you some more payload and a little bit better ballistics. The
Right.
problem with that is weight and size, right? 308 ammo is heavier. 308 rifles are heavier. They're bigger. It's just
more recoil.
Yeah, it works better than the 5.56 for that long range game, but then it really is a detriment for everything else that the 5.56 does. You CQB, any of the closer range distances, out to 100, 300 meters, it kind of sucks.
And I guess that's a good point. It's been romanticized over the last couple decades where, there's snipers shooting people far away. Well, in a DMR type setting where you are doing a lot of things. You're on patrol through a bazaar. You're clearing buildings. You're clearing homes. You're engaging enemies at out to 100 meters. And then on occasion, you have to make a shot at that range.
Yeah.
So you think sniper and they're taking long range shots only, but the reality is there could be somebody 15 yards away that pops up and you've got this big heavy system with you. What do you do?
So it didn't do both jobs really well at all.
Yeah, so you had all the guys transition over to 308s because the enemy's hanging out over here and I need to touch them. So there's this mass movement over to that from the guy's perspective. And then it sucks. It's heavier. You can't carry as much ammo. All those problems, right? And so it was like, well, we need this capability because this is what the enemy's doing, but it sucks for these reasons to carry it and use it. Is there something we could do better? So a good friend of mine, I'll throw out a first name only to protect him, Jimmy, he'll know who he is if he hears this, brought up the question, knowing what we know now, what would you design if you were going on an op, and you had to carry it for 10 clicks and hit a compound and do all this stuff. And initially it was 6.5 Grendel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got nearly identical ballistics to the 308, but you have all the weight savings and size savings of the AR-15 platform. So we started with that. We did a side-by-side of the essentially the AR-10 and the Grendel and the AR-15 and just ran it through a whole bunch of different shooting circumstances, different positions, environments, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the kind of test, we said, all right, well, and this was a bunch of guys said, who wants this and who wants this? And everybody was like, I want that 6.5 Grendel. Like I would carry it. It did essentially exactly what the 308 would do for me, as far as hitting a target and increasing the payload and stuff. So we started down that road a little bit, and then the question came up, well, hey, that's a decade-old design at that point, if not a little bit more. Can we make it better? Have we learned anything over the past decade or so that we could add and improve that cartridge?
Mm-hmm.
That's what became the 6-ARC.
Okay, so yeah, started off, when you look at what's a cartridge designed for, well, from the ground up, we knew what this cartridge was designed for, which was to be light, efficient, and still have external ballistics that put it in that 7.62 NATO type bracket.
Yeah.
And then Miles can speak to this a little bit as a project engineer and a guy who's built a lot of rifles. Chamber design and cartridge design, when done correctly and usually together, you can kind of mass produce accuracy at a rate that the 308 Winchester and the 5.56 have never seen before. What goes into that when you're looking at how can I make this thing shoot well over the course of many rifles and different manufacturers and stuff?
Yeah, it's the same thing that we did with the 6.5 Creedmoor and the BRCs and all those as well. And yeah, you got a fairly tight, not restrictive, but a close fit with your free bore diameter, and then you design your cartridge so that the bullet sticks out of the case, fits in the magazine, and then your chamber is designed around that basically standardized relationship that you have there. And yeah, we're usually a half thou over on bullet diameter on the free bore, so there's not a lot of room for it to get cattywampus, during the firing event. And it just makes it a lot easier when that all is standardized, because if you look at stuff like the 308, every year there's a new Palma reamer or whatever.
Oh, match chamber.
Yeah, match
right.
this, 1997 Palma, and then like everybody's got their own flavor of how to go about it. And some of it is cross-compatible and some of it it's not. And you see it also with the 260 where the SAMI twist rate is too slow to handle the modern heavy bullets, and that's what the 6.5 Creedmoor was, an improvement on to get so you can factory load all that stuff. But that whole world of the custom 260, yeah, you can make it do pretty close to the same thing of what the Creedmoor does, but it's not standardized. You can't just plug and play like you can with what we've done with the Creedmoor, and the same thing applied to the ARC. We got right off the bat, everything just works.
Standardized, and anybody can ream a barrel with a good quality standard dimension reamer and expect good accuracy. And before we get into anything too far, I think it's important to note that, Jayden, you talked about advancements over the last decade. What have we learned in the last decade? Well, one thing that has changed, that is always changing, is propellant technology.
Mm-hmm.
There are different powders, every year, and you can take advantage of that. And by making a cartridge case small, you really reduce the payload capacity of powder. But with some of these modern powders that are really progressive, you can get that velocity back, and you can have some better temperature stability than you did a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really not sacrificing anything there. And that's something that I've seen. I know we all have, but over the last decade, half a decade, every year, there's one powder manufacturer domestically that does a really good job about constantly trying to find a better way to build the mousetrap from a chemistry standpoint, and that's been pretty critical with a lot of cartridge designs, because you can't make a cartridge case good enough to not use the right powder.
Yeah.
You end up with something like the 300 Norma or something like that, where it's like, yeah, it looks really cool on paper, but there's not a propellant that is high performance that's going to work, and that's huge. And then obviously the next progression is bullets. The 6mm bullet as a whole is just a really good balance. Now, from the military standpoint, Jayden, what made that 6mm desirable outside of external ballistics? Did you give anything up terminally going to 6mm versus 6.5 versus 30? How'd that all flush out?
You actually gained it comparing to 6.5, specifically the Grendel. Like Preston said, he looked at the 6.5 Grendel and had one, but it's shooting a heavier bullet, so you lose quite a bit of velocity in that. And when you get to that bullet class of 6.5, the 120-ish class grain weight bullets, they're nowhere near the aerodynamics of the 140s, the 147s, the 153s, right? So you're sacrificing, you're shooting a heavier weight than you need to for the payload of the cartridge, the capacity of the cartridge. But the aerodynamics aren't that great. And so you're kind of in this negative situation. When you take that and you go to 6mm, now you can run the sleekest designed, heaviest 6mm, and it's still lighter than the 6.5, exactly what Preston said. Get your velocities up. Now you've maximized both fields, of velocity and drag. So terminally, the goal of the original project was to meet or exceed 308 terminal performance at distance. I'll leave those distances out of this, but far enough downrange to hit the distances of the enemy I was talking about earlier. We'll leave it at that. So it had to meet or exceed that, and it did exceed that. So it had to be able to shoot from a dispersion standpoint equal to or lesser than group size at those ranges, and it also had to perform terminally. And when you went to 6mm, you had that. If you did it with 6.5, you would have it up close, but you wouldn't have it at distance,
right?
Because those bullets lose too much velocity.
Yeah, and velocity is ultimately what makes a bullet work.
Correct.
When you're talking terminal performance, you have to have the velocity, or the bullet simply doesn't work.
Yep.
So that's interesting. You picked up terminal performance by reducing the bullet weight and the bullet diameter.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty remarkable
because of the velocity performance. Yeah,
awesome. And so now you have a warfighter that is equipped with the small, lightweight platform, the AR-15 size platform that's kind of been the standard, but you have all the external characteristics of a 308 Winchester at range.
Yeah.
How much weight are we talking between an AR-15 and AR-10 of the same barrel length?
It's about 30% across the board. So if you take a same length system, which is generally what guys are going to look at for a certain job, right? If you have your shorties for CQB stuff, and then vehicle work, and then as you get longer, depending on what job you're trying to do. So if you look at a AR-10, the receiver's like a little over an inch longer. Everything's bigger, right? Because it's shooting a bigger cartridge, you have to make a bigger system to be able to contain and operate that thing. So a 16-inch 308 AR-10 is the same length as an 18-inch AR-15.
Oh, sure.
Because everything's smaller in the AR. So you can gain 2 inches of barrel with the AR-15 and keep the same size of the system. And so
that's huge. I thought it was just weight.
No, that's where the weight comes from, though, right? So it's about 30% on the system. So the rifle itself will be about 30% lighter. And then ammunition is another big one. The ammunition's about 30% lighter. So you can either carry more rounds for the same amount of weight that you're used to carrying, or you can carry less weight for the same amount of rounds you're used to carrying. Both are an advantage.
Wins across the board.
There's definitely like a user friendliness as well with the AR-15. The balance point on them. I'm kind of a small guy, and me trying to run an AR-10, it's just not. It's clumsy. It's big. It's bulky. It's not as easy.
Well, and I suppose that lends right into shootability. Your ability to make a shot and to stay on target, or stay reasonably on target.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done some internal full auto testing here recently with a 6-arc and next to a 308. It's
it's night and
total.
day.
Yeah, no comparison. It's more controllable, less recoil. I mean, it's all around a better setup.
Yeah. The other advantage you have too to going to that AR-15 system is you have the interchangeability of upper receivers and magazines. So depending on what a mission set might be, I can have my old 5.56 standby stuff if I want it. I can have a shorty 5.56. I can have a DMR 5.56. Doesn't matter. I can have 300 blackout. I can have subsonic performance if you're doing any of that kind of work. And you can have the 6-arc. So you can pick and choose your upper based on your mission set, and you have the same lower the whole other system is the same. Once you go 308 with an AR-10 platform, that's all you get.
You're committed.
Right? I mean, obviously, in the civilian circles, there's other options, 260s and 6.5 Creedmoors and stuff like that. But even from just a recreational shooter, I mean, you can have an AR-15 that you can shoot your blackout on, your 5.56 on, or your arc on, and you've spanned the spectrum of performance. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That is really neat.
Yeah, exactly. That is really neat. I didn't really think of it in that way. That in regard to the military, you're issued a serialized weapon. Well, that's a lower. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're doing things at night, you're trying to be super sneaky. You got the blackout, suppressed, subsonic. You've got the 6-arc for kind of general purpose stuff. You've got the 5.56 there, and it's just an upper swap. That really is a win.
And that grip is exactly the same, and that's the trigger that you always shoot.
That's the trigger you always shoot. You put the same optic on everything, or that's another thing you could, for the DMR type setups, you could get some higher power magnification stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And so that really sounds like that fit the bill perfectly. It wasn't trying to, I can pound a square peg into a round hole. But if you have a square peg and a square hole, they just go together
It's
nicely.
nice.
Yeah, really nice. So that definitely benefited them. And the situation here was in the first time in I don't know, history maybe, but certainly the first time I've ever experienced it, you had the Department of Defense adopt and field a cartridge, and that cartridge had not been commercially available. That's pretty cool. Now we'll shift gears because the commercial availability was something once we designed this thing, and I know you worked on it and flushed everything out, was like, okay, there's a market for this because it's not just, we need to make a splash, let's release a new cartridge. It was a cartridge that was legitimately better for many different things. And so, we introduced this cartridge to Sammy and we released it as a 2020 new product. So it's been out for a couple of years now. Let's talk about the commercial success and what people are using it for, because that market is certainly bigger, for the normal person. They see that the DoD, they're going to use it and it's great, but from the commercial side of things, it's available and people are using it for a bunch. So I know from firsthand accounts, from a hunting aspect, it's been great. I was side by side with you when you probably shot the first animal with it.
Yeah, I think so. Shot a deer. I don't remember what the range was. It was like 4 and change or something.
505.
5? Yeah.
505.
He never forgets a number.
I do.
Well, yeah. Either way, the terminal performance at that range, it was devastating. I mean, you wouldn't want anything more or less than that. I mean, it performed perfectly. And that was, as we were working on it for the DoD, but now that it's available in gas guns and bolt guns. So that really fits a lot of bills. I pounded on prairie dogs all summer with it, from a gas gun and a bolt gun, and it's just been a joy.
Yeah, I remember the initial offerings, I believe, were just black and match, and then Precision Hunter came later.
Mm-hmm.
So we always do new product release in November.
October.
Right? October.
NASGW show.
That's right. And so we get around to finally going to some of the other shows, the big ones, SHOT and NRA, and then coronavirus happened. So it was marketed, at new product release, and then things got a little hot and heavy in the ammo world, if you guys remember that. Maybe still are a little bit. And didn't really get the due credit it deserved, in my opinion.
Sure.
But it's a fantastic cartridge. Now we have got Precision Hunter and the 103 ELDX as well added to that lineup.
Yep, and that bullet, you get all the shape, drag, cool sexiness of a really long ogive, long boat tail bullet, but you got that terminal performance built in, the tapered jacket, the interlock ring.
Yep.
Really, really awesome. Now, from the precision world where it started, it was built for a warfighter, but it was built to be accurate, and it's got accuracy to spare. Nobody can talk to that better than one Miles Neville. He is, I would say, likely shot more rounds of 6mm arc than possibly anybody. He's really been there, done that, and he's used it for a bunch of things. So, Miles, when you were working at Hornady early on, what initially drew you to the 6 arc for the type of matches that you were shooting?
Well, I guess going back, I was big before I worked at Hornady, big on the Grendel train in the mid-late 2000s.
Okay.
And to me, it's like, oh, this is a great cartridge that is like a do-all. Just throw it in an AR-15, like as far as practical use application, like what can you not do
Deer,
with the Grendel?
varmints, matches,
you got it.
Close range, long range.
And the same thing that we'd already mentioned, that like up close, it's fine. 300-400 yards, you're fine, but you really start losing steam as you go out there. Well, when I was interning here in 2019, I had a CZ 527 little mini Mauser that was a 7.62 by 39 carbine, and got it in my head kind of the same way Preston did, like, oh, let's try something a little different. And I think I was looking at the 6mm AR Turbo is what I wanted to try out. And I mentioned it, I think, to Jayden, and he's like, well, hold off. We got something else going on here.
Crazy how
you
that
might
works.
want to wait just a little bit.
Yeah, just let's try this. And unfortunately, that summer, it never worked out for me to get that rifle built, but still had it in my back of my mind. Like, yeah, this is a 6.5 Creedmoor trajectory with none of the recoil, basically, was what I was looking at for doing. I was like, this is a great win-win all around. But anyway, my introduction to the 6 ARC itself came after I had been hired on full time, and I had been shooting 6.5 Creedmoor in PRS and NRL matches, and I was happy enough with it. But I seen the transition going to all these 6s, 6 Dasher, 6 BR, BRA, all that, 6 Creedmoor. And everybody's ranting and raving about it, all the recoil reduction, all this. And so I think I tried one match with a 6 Creedmoor barrel. And I was like, I don't know what you guys like about this. I've still got enough recoil that I think the 6 Creedmoor has just enough powder behind it that it's got enough recoil that if you run onto the top end, it's not that much of a reduction from a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's there, but it's not like I wasn't impressed, I guess. And really all I noticed was that I don't see my splashes on the long ball targets next to like 147 grain 6.5. So somebody was like, oh, you should try the 6 ARC. And it was really kind of a joke almost. I was like, oh yeah, that little thing. Sure, whatever. I'll spin up a barrel and try it. And yeah, I've been hooked ever since. I mean,
the rest is history.
I put a 28-inch barrel, and we published load data for both bolt guns and gas guns, because the bolt guns don't have the bolt thrust restriction, right? They can handle it plenty fine, and so you get basically a free 100 foot per second out of it in most cases. And so I started dinking around with it a little bit, and it's like, wow, this really doesn't leave that much on the table next to a Dasher or a BR or anything like that. And I have, at the same time, I gave up. I was holding on to I want to use a rifle that I would practically use elsewhere for all these competitions.
A 12-pound gun.
Yeah, I want a 12 or a 14-pound rifle that I don't hate carrying around. And I was seeing guys running 26-pound rifles, and it's like, okay, whatever. I'll build a gamer gun.
You want to play a game? Let's play a game.
Yeah. So put together I think at the time a 26-pound 6 ARC, and was like, this is cheating. This is 100% cheating. I got 6.5 Creedmoor trajectory, 22 Magnum recoil, and it's just enough cartridge to make it to those 1,200 yard targets that are at that are basically at the top end of most of those matches. And for the lion's share of what's at those matches, it's 400 to 800, and that's six. That's the 6 ARC's
what it was
world.
built for.
Yeah. So
that's
I've put, I don't know, probably 6,000 rounds or more downrange ever since.
That was going to be my question. How many barrels have you chambered up for this thing for your race gun?
I'm in it heavy now. I've burned out one barrel, which was still shooting fine. I just got scared at like a little over 4,000 rounds down it. But now I've got, I think, five barrels stacked up. They're all pre-chambered and ready to go and broken in. Yeah.
So the folks are gonna want to know, how fast are you running your 6 ARC out of a 28-inch tube?
28-inch tube with Varget, 2750 to 2770. It's 28 grains. That's I think about the book max. 28.1, I think it's the book max. But and that's just enough. Like I said, if you run the numbers from 2,700 to like the 2,900 at the 2,950, kind of that top end of what a Dasher, a 6 Creedmoor, a 6 GT is going to do. There's a difference. There's a performance difference, and you can see it in the numbers. In reality,
it's not.
In reality, there's a loss there. Because you look at all that on paper, and you're like, oh, I want red hot speed. It gives me the least amount of wind.
Let's get it on,
right? But when you go out and you actually shoot and you find out that this bullet is going so fast that I can't, when I'm on this barricade and I'm a little unstable and I touch that shot off, I can't get back on the scope in time to see where it went. That's worse.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can't see where you hit, you're just right on the edge of the plate. You better make a correction, or you missed and you can't see where you missed.
Right.
Your next shot's a stab. You don't know what to do.
By
so
the time,
slowing it down is actually really important.
Yeah, what's funny is we all just got back from a match, and I noticed there was a Dasher shooter there that we all know and love. He was running 27.75. There was another guy that we know. He was running a 6 BR, just straight 6 BR, running 27.20.
Wow.
And then there was another BRA guy running 27.50. I mean, it's just, you're right there with him.
Todd was running even slower, 26, upper 26s.
New barrel, but you're not giving up anything. And when I initially saw it, I was like, no, this is not a PRS NRL. This is not a race gun cartridge.
Yeah.
After Miles has gone ahead and done all that research for me, I've got one, you've got one, Everybody's getting them.
Yeah, that's really great to see.
For those listeners that are maybe thinking about going, into that kind of wildcat-ish world for the long range, a BR or a BRA or a Dasher or any of those, there's a whole lot of work that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
With your brass prep and all that kind of
Fire
stuff.
forming.
Exactly. So if you want to save time and money, the ARC is right there with them. It's on the lower end of those, like you said, Miles. They'll do more than the ARC will from a velocity perspective. I don't think you need it.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
it's been well established that the velocity game isn't what's winning.
Nobody's
matches.
playing that anymore.
No.
Everyone's watching their bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that rifle. I watch trace 200 yards. I'm on it, and I'm watching it the whole way to target. So targets where there's no backstop, I'm watching that happen. I'm watching I miss off the right. I see that where you miss that, and you have no feedback.
That's
and
a
I've
huge
got
advantage.
It. Yeah. Yep.
Huge
and
advantage.
the other application too, I guess we should get into this. I built a 24-inch AR-15, and so like PRS has a whole gas gun division, and I'm again. So there's a divergence here too. So with Varget, it runs a little bit slower, but it's very consistent, very temp stable. There's a couple of ball powders, CFE 223 and Lever Evolution, that you can reload with, as well as our factory ammo that's in the same ballpark, that go faster. Actually, you get a velocity boost. So that pressure loss that I have going to an AR-15 running, SAMI pressures, I gain that velocity back with a ball powder. And so I'm really running neck and neck with that gas gun and my bolt gun. And I'm not really giving anything up to the guys that are running AR-10 platforms and PRS gas gun that are shooting 6 Creed or 6 GT or any of those other flavors.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great across the board. It does way more than I ever thought it would. Like I said, I started off as a joke, as just kind of like, oh yeah, well whatever, sure, I'll do it, fine, and yeah, grew to love it. So,
that's awesome. That watching your trace thing, we just lived that here just this last weekend at the NRL match there in Nahaka, and we're in the prairie states, right? And so a lot of the matches we go to are on the plains. You go to South Dakota, you go to Wyoming, you go to Oklahoma, Kansas. You go to those places here in Nebraska, there's not a lot of places where there is a stopper right behind your target, where you can see where that bullet went. So when you can see your trace, in my case, airmail past the target, and it's not hitting anything, it's not hitting dirt for 20 yards, but because you got to watch it from 200 yards until it got to that target, you can really see what side of the target you were off, high, low, left, or right.
Right.
And in the prairie states that we shoot most in, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's monumental when you're trying to be the next level competitor. And that's one thing I wanted to mention to the listener. Obviously, Miles, you've shot a lot. You've burned down some rounds in a really accurate system, super precision. You've done a lot of testing with this that we haven't talked about. And it's not like you're a middle of the pack shooter like the rest of us. You're going out there, and in some instances, you're top 10 at a 2-day national level match. That's a tight crowd where a couple points separate a lot of positions.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're just performing well within the Hornady group. On a national level, you're performing really well with this cartridge, and that's something to be looked at, I think. No brass fire forming. You got Hornady brass and the volumes of product that we produce. You get all the advantage of the 6mm bullets that are out there, which is huge. Our 110 A-tip stands out, obviously. And then in a bolt gun, you're using the premier powder. Varget, traditionally, if you can put Varget in your case and it's safe to use, go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's no qualms there. Yeah.
Have you tried anything else from a bolt gun standpoint, or Varget was just this?
Yeah, I played around with Lever Evolution and CFE 223, and those both work well. It's just you have to keep track of temp stability a little bit. If it's a huge swing, that's the only thing. And that's with any other powder that's not like a Hodgson Extreme or some of the newer Reloader series powders. And even those, it's good to test that yourself and know what's going on.
Keep track
there.
of it.
Yeah.
And those are the little things that separate the middle of the pack shooter at a big match and the elite level guy.
Yeah.
They're taking.
And I would say even me, I'm top 15, top 10 fairly regularly. The guys that are winning it, it's not a cartridge selection issue.
No, it's a shooter.
For why they're.
It's like one shot per stage issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've said this 100 times. You'll never cartridge yourself, and you'll never reload yourself into doing better at a match. The shooters sort themselves out. The best shooter could win with almost any cartridge, and that's just how it shakes out. But it's nice to see that the 6mm ARC has such a wide array of things to do. You want to pound on varmints? Great. You want to go hunting for deer and antelope?
Yeah.
Great. You want to shoot a PRS match? Great. PRS gas gun match? Even better. And if you're one of the elite level war fighters that our country's lucky to have, it'll do good with that too.
Yeah.
And that is just an awesome assemblage. Now, Jayden, I know you ran the 6-ARC at this last match as well.
Mhm.
What kind of performance were you seeing, and what were you running? How similar to Miles' setup?
Very similar to Miles' setup, except a 25-ish inch barrel. It's a little longer than 24. I think it's around 25. Powder-wise, a powder that's very similar characteristic-wise to Varget, but it's a ball powder.
Okay.
That one's not commercially available. It's one I was testing for research and development.
Okay.
So shot it at the match. It does really well. I was running 2689 is what I plugged into Fordoff for my velocity. And just like Miles said, I mean, I can watch my stuff on the way to the target. It's awesome.
Yeah. And didn't give anything up. Okay, you're running 2689. You didn't give anything up to any of the,
Yeah, like I said, the only use case where you could say, yeah, this is having a little more speed is definitively better is that 800 to 1200 yard range. But
Sure.
that's like 5 targets at a match.
Mhm.
It's not. I mean,
Yeah.
the bulk of your stuff is right in where the arc shines. I think.
Yeah. Well, I hit last year at that same match we just came back from this weekend. They did it a year ago, and I hit it whatever it was 1430 or
Yeah.
40 or
Yeah,
something.
I say, and
I hit
I have
that one with it.
yeah.
I mean, it'll
Yeah.
do it.
have not had any problems hitting long ball targets with the arc either. I mean, I know on paper you can say, oh yeah, this is a little bit better than this, but
Yeah.
still, I don't notice it at all that I'm lacking anything.
I think what a lot of guys get lost in the weeds on when they look at stuff on paper, especially wind numbers, is, yeah, this bullet might have, 1/10 of a mil less wind, or even 2/10 of a mil less wind than this other one. But it doesn't matter if I can't see where this one hit or missed at. Like,
Mhm.
even though this one, you're going to miss due to the wind. Sorry, it's going to happen to everybody.
I'm a 1/4 inch MOA all day long.
So
Only
being
when you
that
do
you're
your part.
being that you're guaranteed to miss because wind exists, you better know where you missed at so you can correct it. And that's where the benefit of the arc comes in on backing that speed down so you can see it.
Yep, that's awesome. And speaking for me personally, I've got one totally circus rifle, 28-inch proof competition contour, Manners T2A gap. It's 21 pounds, and it's total circus gun. Shoots bug holes, obviously. And then I also have a 22-inch medium Palma, so it's relatively light, relatively short. I ran that at the Mammoth Sniper Challenge here. I wasn't undergunned in the slightest, and I have that in a little bit lighter setup. And kind of like Miles, you talked about originally when you were shooting PRS and NRL stuff, you wanted a practical rifle. I've got 22-inch medium Palma with the scope and everything, Vortex Razor LHT, 4.5 to 22. That gun weighs 12 pounds or something, and it's just a joy to shoot. I can shoot coyotes with it. I can pound prairie dogs with it. I could shoot deer if I wanted, and I could take it to a field-style match and hold my own. And I'm not an AR guy per se, but it is on my stuff to-do list to get an 18-inch gas gun, with like a 1 to 10 Gen 3 Razor or something where, it's kind of a do-all. Up close, out to 800 yards, you could really do a lot with the semi-automatic platform. So haven't done that yet. It's on my things to do list. Preston, what are you running for 6mm arcs? What do you got in the stable?
I have an 18-inch gasser, 26-inch proof on a Bighorn Origin and a T2A gap, Area
Game
419 brass weighted arc rail.
Oh,
so
yeah.
mine's up there as well. Definitely a gamer gun, and I am just starting to break it in. But the first 10 shots went into one ragged hole, and then probably my favorite one.
Yeah,
and
this
is
is
probably the one that you're searching for.
I was going to say, I was going to poke you if you didn't mention
Miles
this.
has a little bit of a mini Mauser. I got a mini action
From Howa.
Yeah, so it started life as a Grendel. Now they're offering it
Mhm.
from the
6
factory.
Yeah, shout out to
so,
Howa.
Spun up a number 4 Wilson barrel on there, and that thing shoots absolute lights out. I love the mini action. I don't know. I cut my teeth with Howa, so I've got an affinity for them. But really, really a fan of that one.
Yeah, that mini action, if you're looking to build one or to buy one now that they're factory available, if you two haven't seen Preston's rifle, Bell & Carlson stock, super comfortable.
Hand painted.
Yeah, it's super, super comfortable. There's some aftermarket bottom metal, or hinge floor plate, rather.
Floor plate.
An aftermarket hinge floor plate, so it's like a BDL style floor plate. It's great. Got the mini action. a relatively lightweight 18-inch barrel. 20.
18 on that one.
18-inch barrel. You put the suppressor on there. What are you running for an optic?
PST Gen 1, 2.5 to 10.
Beautiful. 2.5 to 10. It's just this super compact platform. And if you had, your wife or your kids, or you just want something small and light, truck gun kind of thing, I mean, that is just, it's sexy little rifle.
That was kind of my idea, is once my kids get of age, that'd probably be their gun to take off and go hunting with. But I have no qualms. If I'm going on a cow hunt or a deer hunt, I'll just grab that because it's ready to roll all the time.
I love it.
That's what, even black bear this last year, I have a little 18-inch, that CZ. I finally ended up getting it built into a 6-arc, 18-inch 6-arc. Yeah, that's what I took bear hunting.
Well, we have that 90-grain GMX, and nothing thumps like a GMX bullet when you're looking at bigger game.
It's hard.
Really does. And, everybody wants to talk about, a 500 or 600 pound black bear, and the reality is most people shooting black bears are shooting, 250 pound, 300 pound black bears. So 6-arc with the 90-grain GMX.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say it's the best cartridge generally for it, but yeah, if you keep the ranges reasonable and you select your shots appropriately, there's no reason why, bear or elk are out of the question. Even I think. Well,
and that 90-grain GMX lends itself to.
Yeah, you're going to get the penetration that you need there.
Mm-hmm. And the 90-grain GMX, we should mention, very similar to our 103 ELDX.
We should probably mention that it's not a GMX, it's a CX.
My goodness. the 90-grain CX.
It's burned into your head. It
is. We've had that with the GMX, the legacy product. We've had that since 2009, so I've been saying that for a while. But the 90-grain CX has all that shape drag that you want to see out of like our 103 ELDX.
Such a sleek bullet.
And then you get the terminal performance of our copper zinc alloy. Mm-hmm. That's great stuff. So moving forward, from where we're at in 2022, springboarding forward, we've got more factory rifles out there on the shelf. You can go to the store, you can see rifles chambered in 6mm arc. So that's great. One thing I want to see from us that we're not doing yet is a varmint version of 6mm arc. I really think a 75 grain VMAX or an 87 grain VMAX at the speed of light, just awesome.
That brings up another point. So Miles and I went with a couple shorter barrels just to see. So we in R&D we had cut a barrel down to 12 inches just to see what would happen. But I built a 14.5-inch gas gun, and yours was 11.5 or 12.5?
Yeah, a 12.5.
12.5, and we used them for nighttime predator hunting.
Yeah.
So, running like an 87 grain VMAX. I mean, the name of the game with nighttime predator hunting is max point blank range, right? Because
range finding is difficult.
Yeah,
right?
Your ability to make a correction is hard because, like you said, the range finding. So having something that shoots super fast and super flat is important. And those two systems worked awesome, the 14.5 and the 12.5 for that.
And the other thing, even like night vision and thermal depth perception, trying to range estimation through that stuff is miserable sometimes. Yeah. So, but that's great. There's been a lot of coyotes and raccoons killed with the 6-arc.
Well, guys, on the engineering side, product development standpoint, hear it from me first. I really would like to see a Varmint Express option. I really think that'll open things up now that the factory rifles are becoming much more prevalent. And, I'm really excited to have been a part of this and have it be something that Hornady released and it standardized it. Preston experienced the limitations of wildcatting with his first venture into the 6mm Grindle area. And, we moved the case around a little bit. It's not a simple Grindle neck down. It is a little bit shorter, but it's standardized. It's accurate. It's got a ton of application. You get all the terminal performance benefits of a .308 Winchester. You get the external trajectory to get you out to 800, 1,200 yards, hitting targets no problem. And you get the recoil of a Red Ryder BB gun. I mean, you just can't ask a whole lot more than that. So appreciate you guys sitting down with me, talking about the 6mm arc. I know it was a passion project for Jayden, and it's one of those cartridges that is just going to be here for a long time, and for good reason, because it does a lot of things well.
Yep. We're very fond of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell by this podcast, but we're all giant fans.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, thanks for sitting down with me. Everybody out there in podcast land, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.